Hey, it's Don. Today is question day. Now, I moved the whole schedule around. This last video I put up with Amazon and Jumping Frog, and this is condensed, I got like 10 printed pages of questions, and I'm not exaggerating here. This is the condensed version after I removed all the other stuff that's not questions. And this is just from the people with questions. So it was a lot of questions here. Again, there's no stupid question, so I'm just going to start here. There's no specific order. This is just the way they were printed up and cut and pasted into a document. Again, I saved these. It has everybody's name. I'm not going to call out names just in case people aren't wanting everybody to know who's calling out or wanting to know which question. I don't know if that would matter, but first question here is on a pickup of a large lot of miscellaneous paper. I'm not going to go into the whole details on finding it and price because that doesn't bear on the question. This person, I wound up with a lot more than I imagined, including about a dozen pieces of Civil War correspondence, almanacs dating back to the 1820s with lots of quack medicine. $7 he paid for this. So anyway, I'll give that one out there. $7 and you got all this stuff so far, plus others. Abolitionists, paperwork, some first print books, and more. It was a great score. Some of the items included were Rochester, NY newspapers from 1862 that included the Battle of the Merrimack and the Monitor. The newspapers are only 4 pages and are bound with what seems to be hand stitching. Okay, let's stop right there. The hand stitching on those means they were bound into like a leather bound volume of those actually. So at one point that was probably included in a huge volume book. It's going to be a big leather book. I've shown them. I've had several of them. I had an opportunity to purchase some the other day. Those, you can literally take apart the stitching off of that. The paper itself is not going to be bound or anything. If it's a full-fledged newspaper, they're just leafed together, folded together. So take the stitches out. Don't make any mention of that once you take them out, would be my personal opinion, just as is. That's how it is. Because again, that means it was bound. When you see cloth or stitchery in a newspaper, it was either a repair job. Some of the paper from like the 17 and 1800s and through the Civil War is made on hemp or it's on cotton fiber. They would what's it called? There's a name for a grist mill, I think is what it's called. And you would take old clothing there and they'd grind up the clothing and they'd turn it into a pulp, and then that pulp would make paper. A grist mill. And these are areas that we've metal detected in. And you'd find buttons there because war uniforms would show up there because they were no good. They could bleach out the blood and all the color and all the other stuff, and then the rest of the uniform usually were just trashed out in a pit. And if you metal detect those type of places, this is just an ins if you metal detect, you're going to find some good stuff. I've been to a couple, and we found just horrendous amounts of stuff. So anyway, but with that, again, newspaper does not have any of those stitchery in it. So take out the stitches. It was just a bound edition. I sometimes at one of these local live auctions or from one of my pickers will buy a big bound edition and then cut it apart depending on how it's put together. If it's stitched or glued is a big difference. Depending on how much it's glued, sometimes you can't get it apart without destroying the spine and separating the newspapers. If I would have to separate the newspapers, I wouldn't do it. He was assuming the stitching was done as part of some kind of archival. Again, it was bound into a book. There seems to be a week of newspapers in each binding. Again, they were bound up in, I guess it's called signatures, not a traditional like a printed signature. They would set so many together and probably a week at a time. They'd stitch them up as they got them. So it may turned out that they got all 1 week. This could be like a publisher's book that actually combined them at the publisher's house for all the leftovers they couldn't sell. Sometimes they would put together and then they would sell them as a complete year or a complete, length of run to like a city company or something like that. People would buy these things. It would just be something you'd have for history. So that's just another on that. There seems to be a week's worth. Any ideas on what this kind of binding is called? So again, it's a broken up book. This was just bound. What you have is something that was bound. I can tell you 100%. I've had tons of this kind of stuff. So he wants copies of these for his own digital personal record, which people do that. You can get a large format digital scanner and it'll scan. It's like for blueprints or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen the prices on them for a few $100s. Maybe I get a used one if that's what you want to do. If you go to like a printing company, not not, one of these quick run-ins like a Home Depot or Office Depot style. Go to a printing company. Many of the traditional or sign printers will have some sort of scanning device that gets a larger size format. With art, I have to stick to certain sizes. Otherwise, I have to take them in myself, because my flatbed, I think, does, I think it's 10 by 14, or I have a 10 by 14, I think, is the largest one we have, only because of art, and I had to spend extra on that, and those are expensive. So that's your options on that. To get the thread off on that, I have surgical scissors, and it's swooped on the end, and you can literally just slide them down there. The end of the scissors are about this big. I don't have them handy, and I don't know exactly where they're at right now. We were using them the other day, and they didn't get put back. So if I dig them up, I will show you. But on eBay, you can buy, I bought a set of dental tools. I use Dental Picks. It's like 7 or 8 different tools. I bought a dental set, and then I bought some, like, snips, and some, I can't think, hemostats or something like that, to clamp things down when I hold stuff, or for like wiring stuff together. It's easier to hold a hemostat if you're soldering. And then the other end I use are the magnifiers, which I think I've shown in one of my videos, with the little gator clips on it for things. So I use those medical scissors to swoop in there, and you can slide in very carefully and snip. These are meant to cut stitches and sutures. And that's literally what they're made for, and that's what I use for it, because they're razor sharp, and they'll cut through that without putting force on the paper, because again, it has to be able to bend in there. The end is like swooped really bad. I mean, it's really a unique piece. I don't know the name of it. I bought it in a lot of stuff. Somebody else recommended it to me. It's been years. Mine's even got some rust on it from, I got it wet once, and I just haven't bothered with it because it's just a tool to me. So it's lasted forever. I keep the ends nice. So anyway, that's the easiest way with that. Hopefully that answers that specific question on there. Okay, now this person created a case asking for the form to apply to get ungated in collectibles. You can't do it through the case. They're not going to do anything for you. It's a totally the wrong process to do that in. You literally go into your account, and I think I touched on this in like 3 or 4 videos ago when I show how to list, or how the categories work on Amazon in these areas. I showed you literally the historical. It's in the title, I'm sure. It's an explanation on Amazon, I think, in the title of the video. It's in the last, say, 6 videos or so. You want to look at that. Let me cross this out so I know where I'm at on the paper here. You literally just go in from the hub and go to the collectibles area, and then request to sell something that's collectibles once you get to the collectibles area. That's all you got to do. And then it's going to say you need to apply, or whatever it's going to say at this point. That's how I went in from it. That's how I apply. So again, this goes for anything you're listing. If you want to get ungated in something, you have to go through the category header that you would click if you were going to list something in that category. And then you can literally request to be ungated, or like with collectibles, you can request the form. Now, I've seen it. I know it says they're not accepting any applications. It has said that for 3+ years. This was 3+ years ago when we first applied, and it said it back then. So I don't hold much water into that. If you've been on Amazon enough, you'll know that they don't always update certain things, and some of the statements on there are incorrect. Sometimes the dates have been messed up. There's wrong information on a few sections, or let's not say wrong. One page contradicts another page on some of the Amazon rules and regulations. I've run into that quite a bit. So the form, it's literally, now I supplied it to Charles. Maybe I'll put a link or drop it in here. I don't know if it's the same thing they use anymore. That's the only concern I had the other day, because someone said, well, what if they're not using the same form anymore? I don't know what form they're using. I can't get a copy of whatever the current one is, because I'm already approved to sell. There's certain stipulations and things. You can't have more than one account for a company. So if we have other companies, there's some rules and such on that we can have several accounts. I'd have no access to that. I wouldn't want to open up an account just to try and produce a page on it and get in any trouble with Amazon, because the names I report, I'm honest with what I give them, the information. They've got, all my tax information, my EIN, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how to get in there and show you the specifics on going to that. But literally, when you're in Seller Central, or your seller account, when you go to pick the categories, you pick the collectibles categories, and it's going to tell you need authorization to sell in this, and there's going to be a button that says either not taking applications, or you can apply through it here, or to get on the waiting list. I went through all that process through it. And I believe it's exactly the same thing from what everybody's told me as it was when I applied. Again, I don't know what the deal is. I just think they haven't changed it. It has honestly been exactly the way it was described to me just 2 days ago, 3 years ago. So don't always hold water in them saying they're, not letting new people in. I don't know what they're looking for at this point. I know 3 years ago I filled up the pages. It's just one little document. There's nothing to it. And again, if I remember in the next day or so, I'll try to put a copy of it here. And that's what I sent in to them. And I sent another subscriber here in Patreon a copy of what I sent them. I've replaced my personal data with, other details on it. So if the person I'm talking about, you know who you are, it's a couple, you can send me a copy of what you ended up filling in there, and maybe it's a title issue or something. I don't know. So you're welcome to send that back to me too, so I can see what they sent you in response. Yeah, it's for this same question here, you can't go through the cases on this. This has nothing to do with cases. A case is only on once you're already dealing with that. If you open up a case and they give you a ASIN or the Amazon number for your listing through a case for some reason, usually you have to literally go in and ask for permission. Even if they say, hey, here's a number, you're still not going to be able to list that item in a collectibles for the most part, because you have to be ungated in the collectibles section itself. You can't list in that section through, an exemption for ASIN number, because you still aren't ungated in that category. You'd only be able to list that item somewhere else. And again, if you're not listing an item in the correct category, you could get dinged by Amazon, and then you could have an issue with the whole aspect. They'd pull it down and cut it. So I would not recommend that. One of the other comments on one of these is not listing like postcards somewhere else. People list that stuff in the home section. I don't do anything that Amazon tells me not to do, even if I could get away with it, because Amazon will shut you down in a second if you mess up on something. So, it's not all, I'm not trying to scare you on Amazon. I haven't been shut down. I haven't had any issues. I know somebody who has got a warning and they never heard another word about it. So, things happen. There are people that get gated. I've been gated on stuff that I was ungated on for a while. So, that's nothing against any specific. That's just something they do. So, again, even if, let's say, you did get somehow they authorized you and let you sell one specific item with an ASIN number, it's only going to let you sell that one item. So you'd need to do that every single time you had a item to sell. Every single time. And you're talking days to get answers back and forth on these cases sometimes. So again, you have to be ungated in the category to worry about listing any of that stuff. That means nothing. You need to go about it through the exemption, the ungating process. And again, a few videos ago, I have some discussion on that. Okay, and then she goes into some details. Now, this is mostly about books on here is what the response is. In case if you wish to list the antiques on the books. Okay, so the going into this from the email correspondence, I see that currently we do not have enough information in troubleshooting the entire issue, because of which I would request you to write back to us with the following information: AISN, category of the product, name of the product, UPC, EAN, or JAN or ISBN, condition of the product. Please know that to list collectibles on Amazon, you need to request approval according to the Amazon policy. So again, even if they give you these exemptions, you still won't be able to list until you actually get approval through the policy in the collectibles category. So again, if you're not ungated in collectibles, none of this is going to do you any good. None of it. So even if you get this approval in this step through this process, again, as I said, you can't list in that category anyway. You're still going to run into that. All that is doing is allowing you to list the items if you have approval. So again, these are two different processes. If you get approval in collectibles, you won't have to go through this process at all, because you will have the ability to set up your own numbers, and Amazon will do the rest. So you type in a specific item number, your subset number, whatever you want to call it, and it's going to do everything else and assign you the ASIN number on its own. You don't have to even touch or do any of that stuff. They are saying that you can list the antique paper in the books and CDs category. But in the books, again, you need an ISBN, so you would have to get approval for every single card. And without actually sending them photos, my opinion is they're going to kick that back and say they don't know the product enough to say what you're talking about. That's just what I've run into from other people telling me things like that. So again, if you get ungated in collectibles, all this is moot. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just can make up your own number and list as much as you want in that section without any regard for dealing with Amazon again. As soon as I was ungated in whatever category I get ungated in, I don't hear any more from them. No other issues. I can just assign my own number, like in collectibles, like vintage records. I can list any number of records in any of the vintage vinyl sections for any size or anything like that without doing anything. I can type in the number that I create for that specific vinyl. Some other people can tag underneath my actual listing. I don't really care. I'm the originator. I'm the father of that listing, and I can say what goes to some extent if somebody's putting the wrong item on there and knock them off my listings. Not the right category to list it, so they could come back after you later and ding you for listing in the wrong category. So I'm just telling you those are the pitfalls. The only way that I can see to list the vintage collectibles on Amazon is to go through the process. And again, I know somebody who's dealing with it right this minute in this group in Patreon, and they've, I think, 3 or 4 submissions now. It took me 11, so don't give up. I would have done it 50 times. I would have submitted that same form 50 times if that's what it takes. Very prone to do that kind of stuff. I'll just keep doing it. Persistence usually pays off. They'll either get tired of hearing from you. They'll say, hey, look, this is my 7th email. I'll keep responding. I'll keep telling them how many emails I've sent. Please let me know what I need to do, what's going on, what haven't I filled out right, where am I going wrong with this. That's your way in. So in collectibles, there's condition options you can put in as well too, so just keep that in mind. You can't do the same conditions. You don't have the same options in books as you do in collectibles, so that's another issue on that too. So the rest of it just goes into the exemptions on that specific question. Again, you don't want to go the exemptions route because all that does is allow you to list them in the books section. And again, you're going to need to get an exemption for every single individual item if you want to go that route, and you're in the wrong category. So, okay, the next one here I've got graphics for. So this is an ad that was sent to me, a picture of one. This is a full page ad. This is actually not a bad item, as long as it is actually from 57 and this isn't from a copied newspaper. To get the wrinkles out, if you want to get the wrinkles out, that was part of the question there. I'll give you a price in just a second here. If you're careful, you can take an iron to it. If you go back again into some of my videos, again, it's probably like 25 or 30 videos ago. They're all numbered, so you can just file the order down. All my titles are very specific as to what's going on there. It's probably in the one that says repairing paper. I believe you can search here on it. My page on Patreon doesn't look the same as yours. I can't look at it from another standpoint as easily as you can and see the functionality because I can't join my own group to see what it has. I've never been on anybody else's Patreon. So again, check that video out. It's pretty much you're just going to use an iron very carefully. If the paper's yellow, I don't know if I'd want to do it. I'd have to check it out very carefully. No moisture, just a real flat surface. Put something down safe, something hard underneath it. Usually I use a piece of plywood that's nice and smooth and clean, and I'll iron over that. It's got to be nice, smooth plywood, and if you have to sand it with like 1,000 grit sandpaper. You want as smooth as possible when you do that. It was a big difference. You can see it in that repair video. Paper Repairs is the title of it. Watch that video if you want to see how to flatten that. Price-wise, it's a full-page ad. Again, if it does say at the top that it's a legit 57 paper, I couldn't quite see the details in it. I would probably list this in the, say, at least 57.50, somewhere in that range. So again, 57 Ford, add some information to it, add some keywords, Thunderbird in there. 57.50 would be my minimum probably in that range for that piece of paper. So hopefully that answers your question on that. So hopefully that answers that one. Okay, I watched your video about being ungated in Amazon. I have dabbled some with FBA, but now want to do more. I understand about obtaining invoices, but I can't seem to understand how people get ungated in certain brands. I wanted to sell Starbucks and Bath and Body Works, but it's a restricted brand. How do I get around that? The invoices are the only way around that. Your invoices have to say that you have Starbucks items on it, and they will give you the exemption to sell whatever's on that invoice. Usually it's not just for what's on the invoice. Let's say you bought 2 different Starbucks items to sell from a wholesaler at wholesale prices to turn around and flip online. Those items, your invoices for that are going to say Starbucks 46-ounce pack of coffee, whatever variety you bought, 20 units. That's what it's going to say on it. Line by line item invoice. It has to be a invoice, not a bill of lading, not a will call, not a temporary, not a bid, nothing like that. It has to be a full-fledged invoice. Usually it's something that I can, produce that has a paid on it and on top of it, and I'll scan that in for them if I've needed to do that. Once I've been ungated in one of these areas, like selling CDs or something, again, from wholesale invoice, I bought 1,500 CDs, sent that invoice in, and then that's how you can get ungated in stuff. So that was CDs. I sell most of my records in the vintage vinyl section, which is through collectibles as well. So I sell vinyl that way. Even if it's sealed, I would consider it a collectibles vinyl. So it bypasses, I guess you could say, selling it in the brand new section, because most everything, even if it's sealed, it's still a used older item what I sell. I don't run across new LPs or anything, or don't mess with them too much, because the market fluctuates and there's too many different varieties and ways to scam on some of those. So I only mess with the vintage ones, which all can go up there. So if you want to do Bath and Body Works, you're going to have an invoice from Bath and Body Works, a wholesaler that supplies Bath and Body Works items. I don't know about Bath and Body Works. They may not work through a wholesaler where you can purchase it that way. I can't tell you on that one. Starbucks you can find from a wholesaler. I don't know what the intake is on it. Sometimes you might have to bite the bullet and purchase some items from a wholesaler to get ungated to be able to sell items that you got from other sources. They're not going to know where you've got the sources from. I'm not telling anybody to do anything deceitful or lie or anything like that. But if you buy stuff from a wholesaler, you're allowed to get ungated for that. And if it by chance lets you get ungated in other areas, fine. The worst thing that would happen is that Amazon would come back and say, I need another invoice. So as long as you're good with the wholesaler, go back and buy some more Starbucks items or whatever items you're trying to get ungated in. The only way to get ungated on anything is to have a wholesale purchased invoice from them, and they're going to ask to see that, and they can call. It's going to darn well have correct information. The phone number better be right, an email address better be right, the contact information better be right. You can't fudge these. If you fudge these, it's probably a lifetime ban on any aspect of Amazon like that. So don't fudge it. Just go to a source. Just type in wholesaler on a Google search in your town. You're going to find some wholesalers locally that will do it. I've given one on a YouTube video. You can literally type in wholesaler in there or look through the list down there that's supplied. I do again have my list down here for all my videos. That's your best bet. Again, for any category or any brand, you have to have the invoices from a wholesaler to show it. You have to have a legitimate licensed wholesaler. Amazon has a list of every wholesaler, every business that sells on Amazon or allows them to sell, deals with. So once they see a name, you're pretty much just ungated. In 15 minutes, you can send this thing in and usually get a response. So that tells me that as soon as they see the top and the name, it's all scanned in digitally. A person doesn't even look at your app, usually, from what I see. It's just immediate. So as long as you have a wholesale, the only other way that I know of on earth that you can do it is have somebody else who's got the permission to sell it in that category. And then you're going to give up some money on it. So I wouldn't do that. It goes with FBA or merchant fulfilled. It's the same thing either way, merchant fulfilled or FBA. To get ungated, you need the invoice. And the invoice has to have the brand that you're trying to sell on that invoice. So again, people have bought things from a wholesaler at more than they wanted to spend, bought a small amount just so they could sell other items on Amazon. And pretty much, I think everybody I've talked to that's had an invoice has got ungated in those items, or that brand in general, I should say. I can't promise you that will happen. So you could technically buy those items at a wholesale, and for whatever reason, your account might not have been on long enough, or whatever the case may be, they still might not engage you. I haven't heard of that happening, but I can't say it doesn't at all. My base is limited to the people that I touch with and here and on YouTube to some extent, and Facebook and Instagram. So hopefully that gives you the answer on that one there. So let's move on to the next one here. One question: when listing books, the ISBN is preceded by 10 or 13. The ISBN is the International Standard Book Number. If you go to isbn.org, they've got a page. You can literally look up the entire thing on that. The gist of it is each country issues is allowed to have one department that issues these. A 10-digit just means it was done when there was enough available space. Pretty much every digit you can use in a 10-digit list of numbers has been used up until this point. They're all full. There aren't any more available. So they went up to 13 digits. That's all it is. So every book, every manuscript, I've got ISBNs on my college work. My thesis and things like that are literally archived. They're registered. They get a free ISBN with our graduation. So some of my information does have library ISBNs tied to them, where you can request copies of them from the university and things like that. That's what happens when you publish through the university and things like that, and as well when you submit your master's thesis or your project, your master's project, whatever you may be doing for to qualify for your master's degree. Your doctorate is the same way. They will actually archive it in the library of the university. Mine is done at the University of Toledo. My master's documents are there. You can dig out the ISBN and you can actually see a copy of my master's. I've shared it in my Facebook group. If anybody wants to see what a master's thesis project is, just let me know. I will post it here too. So all those numbers mean is that it was full, so the 10s aren't really available anymore. Every new one is 13. If you've got a 10 that you personally own, you can actually go to the isbn.org and you can actually put in your 10-digit number, and it will give you a correct 13-digit number that will track back to that same original book that you actually would own. So FYI. That's all there is to that. It's just a numbering system. Again, each country has one department or government agency that handles that, and that's it in every country, and only one specific place issues them at the end of the day. So when the university does it, they just apply through the government or whatever it goes through, and then boom, you get an ISBN. As I said, I have a couple. End cuts, bubble cuts. I got a partial video done. I'm trying to get this guy, get a conversation going, but with my schedule and his, it hasn't been very easy. If you call around, $28, she's saying she can get 700 feet for $28. I don't know what the shipping cost is. I don't know what the shipping on something like that would be. I pay $15 to say $20-$25 depending on the size of the roll. And it's just some random number they throw out there based on what they usually get out of it. If you're paying shipping on that, you'd probably knock it down. You wouldn't have to worry about shipping, picking up locally. Probably knock it down to about $20, and you might get 1,000 feet of it. 14 inches or bigger is average. And I've gotten some that were, huge, wide rolls, and they stand about this tall. I mean, they're huge from the ground. They're like 4-foot thick rolls. Maybe there's more than 1,000 feet. I don't know. It's just this massive amount. If you call around to the box makers, ask them if they do custom bubble wrap and stuff, and if they say yes, that's your in right there. Ask them what do they do with the end cuts of the end of the rolls. Would they sell those to you? That's all you got to do. Just call around in the phone book. I found out, ran into it, and I called around. There's 2 people in this general area that are near me that will do it. I never looked past that. There may be 20 in the city that will do it. I don't know. Our city's not big, but I would bet you $1 million there's somebody locally that would do that. I'll show it to you in a video here soon. I'll show you what one of these rolls looks like, so you can kind of see. Maybe we'll get a guided tour of their box manufacturing business. I'm hoping for that. It was approved by one department, and it's a bunch of problems because there's safety issues in hard hat areas. So anyway, this isn't some little rinky-dink thing, me just going into a camera. There's more safety and OSHA and all that stuff to it. So FYI, why it hasn't completely happened yet. Okay, I can see why you're so impressed with the jumping frog. Yes, very impressed. What app do you use to get the Amazon pictures? I don't use an app. I usually list them on eBay first and then cross-list them over there. But with a third-party app, I can do it all in the third-party app. So once I list them from the third-party app, I don't have to worry about photos. They're just my regular scanned images, or literally a photo that I took from my little photo studio that I have here. So I use no app. I literally just alter them with eBay, and then that eBay photo was there. But now again, I'm using Sellbrite, so that's where I'm doing all my stuff at. I don't have any app other than the third-party app. That's it. I don't use a phone for anything. Nothing. Maybe accepting some offers. I hate phones in general, cell phones anyway. I use them and stuff. I have them around because they're a necessity to look up stuff, but I'm not a big fan on the phones for any of that. I have a Nikon D5300 that does every one of my photos, and then the scanner that I've shown here in another video, which, again, scanner is in the title of that video. So, again, that's what I do for that. I am confused about third-party app that you refer to. Sellbrite is a third-party app. Type in Sellbrite. Sellbrite.com, I think, will take you straight to them. I absolutely understood using an app to cross-list and manage items across multiple sites. What confused me, and maybe you didn't mention in this way, was about the pictures. You seem to indicate that the nicely trimmed and straightened pictures are generated in the app. No, it's not generated in the app. I'm assuming he's doing the same thing that I have done. Through getting into Sellbrite and doing all these other stuff and trying to cross-list this, I've talked to other people. Everybody has done the same stages I have. They've just taken photos. They didn't worry about having white backgrounds. The minute they're going to list on Amazon these other items and cross-list, they run into the issue where, wow, I didn't think about it. My photos don't have the right background, and they're not clear enough or not the best photos, and I'm getting dings on Amazon that say this item photo quality is bad, and the item is not actually active. They'll deactivate some of your listings if they deem the photo quality bad, just to let you know. I've got a couple that it's happened to. So that's why I say this. So I'm just doing an assumption again. I've looked at many people. I've talked to people who are in the same process or have now done the process a year ago. So when I see those photos, just from experience looking at it, I know what he's doing. He's switched to white backgrounds. He's scanning paper. Again, I've switched the scanners, and you can instantly see when I did it. If you look through my items, sequentially through, date-wise. You can see I just stopped doing the old process, and I'm doing them all so they can all be cross-listed. I'm not worrying about, what I used to do and just worrying about eBay. I don't think about it being eBay anymore. I think about it as a one set policy for my photo quality images. So I've well, you can't see it, but I've added in white counters with melamine surfaces all over that don't really reflect light. And so that boxes all my stuff in. So even when I'm doing like items, like three-dimensional items, all my photos have a white background with 85% or more. I crop them as close as I can to the items. I didn't used to do all this before. So that's why I can say without a doubt, this guy, I'm sure this is the Paper King guy that I'm talking about. I haven't seen another one, and I scroll through Amazon very extensively, sometimes for a couple hours at a time, making notes on seller accounts, making notes on, their amount of feedback in a certain length of time. That's the only way you can determine how people are selling stuff on Amazon. And sometimes even when you only see a few feedbacks, they could have sold thousands of items. So again, it's not an accurate way to do it, but it's the best we have with Amazon. So that's what I mean by that. There's no app that I use. I just use the white feature of everything I have. I don't worry about past that. I know there's people that have all these apps and stuff that you got to run things through that will give you a white background and things. I don't want to have to send my pictures to somewhere else and then still send them to upload. When I upload them, eBay will crop them down. I can adjust and get the colors right and everything else. If I do it with my camera, I'm pretty close anyway. If I'm using the scanner that I have and I show you does a very good, accurate job on color. And you can adjust it in the scanner so everyone comes out fixed to start with. So again, I added a border around him and all this kind of stuff in the scanner preferences, so I don't have to do that. My camera, the same thing. I've set my preferences. I've done a white test and literally kind of keyed my color, the white in my camera, to the white on the board. So that's all I do. Yeah, and he's saying, too, he uses a scanner or a camera system that takes a picture of a book or magazine and automatically straightens it, removes all keys toning, flattens it, and trims it. I don't do any of the flattening or any of that. If it's got a wrinkle in it, it has the wrinkle in it. I don't do any of the keys toning or whatever that is that you're talking about there. I don't do any of the ones that remove the hole punches or any of that kind of stuff. What it looks like is what it looks like. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. The only thing I mess with is the contrast and the lighting on that. So, yeah, and he's saying here all of that can be done manually, of course, but it's very time consuming. Again, like if I'm scanning, it crops down. My camera can set up everything but the crop from the camera. Otherwise, I'd have to crop each one by one. So that's the gist on that. No app, no nothing. I just do it through eBay to alter all my photos. It takes just a minute on eBay. I use the same photo. I just copy or download a copy. If you don't have a third-party app, again, I use mine. I use Sellbrite for it now. So if I'm doing something, it's being listed on Sellbrite and not on eBay, so to speak. So that answers that one there. A few observations. Amazon states that it is not accepting any new sellers in the historical and advertising collectibles, but has a sign up to be notified if they open the category again. That's pretty much what it said again, as I said, when I first applied for it. It said they weren't taking any new applications. I just got in there and started sending it in and finally got in there. Again, 11 times to get through. The music category is shut down with no notification sign up. Now, I'm not sure if you're referring to the music category like collectible vinyl. That's through the collectibles, too. So once you get approved in collectibles vinyl, you're all set. That's where I sell my 78s in collectibles vinyl. But again, I'm ungated in collectibles. And it allows me to set up any number I want. I don't have to get permission to sell anything that's a record or anything in the collectibles or any of that. So my item number in Amazon will be whatever bin it's in. So if it's in bin A1, it'll be A1-1 for the first item, A1-2 for the second item. Those are literally the numbers. I'm not using an ISBN or anything like that. I'm just putting in numbers like that to be able to list the item. And then Amazon does everything else. They give me an ASIN number. Again, I have permission through being ungated in collectibles. Everything in collectibles pretty much doesn't have any of those kind of numbers on them. Some of the records do here and there. But again, I don't tie in any of my collectible, even the records with a barcode, to that barcode for the most part, because the condition is different on some of them. I don't have to worry about this, especially in 78. So I will look into the music category section. So in the next video, just keep an ear out for that. Yeah, and he's saying it doesn't appear to be gated, but appears to be shut down for the music category is what he's referring to. That could be, but again, most of what I sell in the records are all collectibles. I do have permission to sell some records, obviously, in the new section, but that came along when I applied for the CDs because we could purchase records as well. So I have had invoices for purchasing records from a wholesaler as well, too. That's the way I got in. Again, this has been 3+ years ago, mind you. It's hard to say what's going on with them. I can only give you the information that I have with my entry into it. So most of the places that you go to, like the auction and stuff, are going to be vintage records. Again, I do have a couple people here in this group that are actually in the process. They already got the forms. They've already submitted them several times to Amazon for collectibles. So as it progresses, if they get ungated, I'll let everybody know that, yes, they are still letting people in. They're the closest right now that I've heard of anybody getting ungated. I do know a couple patrons right now who got ungated and selling CDs through having invoices from them. So I know you can still get into CDs. Again, I don't know music specifically, but if you're selling CDs, you can still get ungated in CDs. And this was just from a few weeks ago. So let's see here. I dove in for a look at the Jumping Frog feedback to try to understand who is buying collectibles on Amazon. Interestingly, the majority of negative feedback from that seller is from people who are not collectible buyers. Rather, it's people who see a photo of a product, ignore the title, magazine advertisement from 1968, product not included, and then complain when the product arrived with the advertisement instead of the product. So I don't know if that means you get a higher return rate because people aren't paying attention. If so, I wonder if there is a better way to title or list the products to avoid the issue. I'd love to jump in with Sellbrite and cross market all of my listings. Are you still liking that service? You haven't gotten everything moved. No, I haven't gotten everything moved. It's been a long process, and with everything else going on, I'm only dedicating so much time. We're paying for it still. I'm not going to give up on it. I've talked to people who have taken a year to get it straight, where everything was working perfectly after a year. I'm looking at the long run. So if I have to deal with this for a year, I'm going to deal with this for a year and just move on from there. Because once it's all done and everything's listed everywhere, my own store's up and all that kind of stuff, I don't have the concerns anymore. So it might be a hard process to get there, but once I'm at the end of the road, I'll be happy. On the magazine advertisement, I would just put print ad, antique collectible print ad, as the title of that. Don't even put the word magazine in there at all. It's a print ad. That will eliminate. If you put the word magazine in there, that's the person's problem. They're listing it on other sites that have a category that says print ad. Or advertising printed material. So that's why, again, why I say this is the guy from eBay. This is a gentleman who is cross-listing all these items on multiple sites, and he just used the title that he thought served it best without thinking that he's pulling them from eBay that has a category for print ads to a site that only has historical ads. And you would probably have to list something more specific. Again, print ads. Just add print ads and don't worry about magazines to list a print ad in Amazon. That's what I do. Postcard, same thing. If it's a postcard folder, it's a folder versus a booklet, a brochure. All those words go in the title, so it's correct to a collector. A print ad would be a collector's terminology versus a magazine advertisement. So here's another question. So if I have a unique trade card, I would have to create a new listing, and what will people search for? Antique trade card plus other keywords. I put literally Victorian trade card, and then you can actually use keywords. I'll literally put 1870s-80s trade card, business card. I think you can put 5 to 7 or something in that spot. So those are the terminology I use there. Usually the category listed in, just like on eBay, if somebody types in Victorian trade card, obviously going to take you straight to the Victorian trade card section. If you're in the Victorian trade card section, you don't need to put the words Victorian trade card in your listing if you're searching that way, because it'll automatically pull up from things from that category. So again, it works similar in Amazon. So if it's a Victorian trade card or a trade card in general, I'll just put trade card in the title along with whatever the trade card is. If it's an Arm & Hammer trade card, Arm & Hammer Victorian 1880s original vintage trade card, something along that line. Literally, my titles, for the most part, are very similar on Amazon as they are on eBay, other than the fact that you can't use the actual numbers on the title of the item. So I had to alter pretty much all of the listing titles to remove, like I have like A12 to tell me the bin a card is in. You can't do that technically on Amazon, and I don't want to get dinged for it. So that's another issue with taking them down. Another issue with me, like going to Sellbrite or something else, talking about cross-listing, what I have to do is import them into Sellbrite, have the complete listing in Sellbrite, and then end them, and then delete them on eBay. And then you have to go back and then promote them out to the other, or broadcast them out to the other sites you want to list them on. Now, you can bring them in and keep the original listing, but then it's not going to pull them down. The only way the site pulls listings that sell down from one site from the other sites is if it was actually created in Sellbrite. That's the biggest problem with the app. So hopefully that explains that aspect of it for you there too. Okay, and also I just tested a collectible toy that I just bought, and it let me list as a collectible. A collectible in toys could be like a Hot Toys item or something like that. I don't know the technical definition for collectibles, but I can tell you the main collectibles section that I sell in has no toys. So you're in a toys section that technically has a collectibles section, if that makes any sense. With your collectibles comment selling in the collectibles here, you better watch out too. Sometimes it'll let you sell things in a category even though you're not allowed to sell in that category. It happens sometimes. For some reason, a gate doesn't go down on you and you're able to do it. It's happened to me. It's happened to some other people that I've talked to. Not saying that's the case here. It is a possibility. But there are technically 2 categories of collectibles for toys. There's a toys one that happens to have a collectibles line for like Hot Toys and things like that for the designer and the expensive toys. And then there's a collectibles section that has a broken down category for toys and things like that. And that's usually what I would list for like a movie collectible in the entertainment section for toys. So if it's a Star Wars toy from 1977, it's going to go in collectibles, movie entertainment collectibles, and then, Star Wars is going to be the title of it. So Collectibles in general, what I would more refer to as collectibles, are the paper, the vintage, the records, and things like that that are more than 20 years old. Antiques, I should say. Collectibles, the ungated collectible section is mostly antiques. For an item to be considered an antique, it has to be at least 20 years old. A collectible can be in the 20-year range, all the way up to 2 or 3 years ago, or even to today. So there's a difference in collectibles versus the collectibles category itself. So again, trade cards, you would need to go through the collectibles process. And again, it says they're not taking applications now. It's said that before, but there's a waiting list. Apply through there. There should still be another option to submit your forms for it. My opinion is they just want to give you a hassle and make sure you're serious about doing this, and it's not just some fly-by-night thing. Hey, let's get ungated on collectibles. A lot of people, including myself, will just click on gate and try to get ungated items when we're out scanning stuff. So I think it's just a way to, make sure it's not just riffraff selling in collectibles. And then goes, also read the collectibles. I am allowed to sell Kenner toys. Now, I would be leery on saying Kenner toys in general. You could be ungated in one item by a specific maker and no other items by that same maker. In some cases, say you want to sell something vintage or something, it may allow you to do it. It may not. It may allow you to sell, let's say we're talking about Kenner Star Wars figures or something like that. It may allow you to sell one specific character, like let's say Luke's figure. You might get Darth Vader and not be able to sell it. You might be gated on that. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You could start to selling it. They could notice you selling in it and they say, hey, you shouldn't have been selling in it. That's happened too before. So I never count on anything in being ungated and stuff like that, just personally, because I've been clipped later on and told, hey, you can't sell in this category. Or, the owner of the rights to sell those items may say, hey, you can't sell it. Or they may hit you up and say, I want an invoice to show that you purchased these from a legitimate wholesaler. Those are all the things you could run into when you sell stuff in some of these categories. Again, there's no rhyme or reason to some of it. Everybody's safe in home goods, books, and some other items along that line too. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on that. I know now we're talking about help other sellers with applying for collectibles category. Does anyone know the quickest way to get to that post here on this page? Basically, another one wants to know how to get to it, and the conversation. The conversation, again, you have to go through the process. To get to the category section to actually apply, literally you just go in there and type in a title of Victorian trade card, 1870s. It's not going to have one that matches it. You're going to go, look for the category to list this in and create your own listing. And from there, the minute you go and click on collectibles, it's going to tell you that you need to be ungated and that they're not technically taking it, but they are taking a waiting list. That waiting list, in my opinion, is just for them to take their time to go through these. There's no rhyme or reason, again, as to how soon you could be ungated or if they're still ungating it. Again, I'll keep you informed the minute I find an answer and somebody is ungated. I've got several people that are going through the process, so the minute somebody's ungated in the collectibles, I will let you know, and we'll know for sure it's still a viable entrance into collectibles. Again, the title you see is the same exact title that it was when I applied. Exactly, I promise you, it's the exact same title. It said they weren't taking applications then, be on the list and send in your information now. They wouldn't ask for your information if they weren't still at least taking people, in my personal opinion. So, as I said, I've got several people, several different parties that are trying to get in there right now who have already put in applications. I will give you an answer, and again, I'll try and post the form down there. So hopefully that answers that as well. Here's another one. I had an inquiry to purchase a Victorian trade card from someone in England, but the global shipping program cost was exorbitant, $19. How do you ship paper items internationally? I ship to England, France, Canada, Australia, Japan, and Germany straight through me. It's only like $14, and I use first class international with tracking. That's the lowest I will go on shipping international. I will not put an item in an envelope. If they're asking you from England to put it in an envelope and the item costs more than $20, they're doing it to bypass paying the import-export fees. Anything imported in the country levies a fee, and you have to report it legally. If you're purchasing the postage through eBay, the U.S. Postal Service can see what you're doing. So if you're not doing it with the import-export, which I don't know how you do online, you could have an issue. Some people send these out through regular mail with a stamp on it. That is not legal. And I usually tell people that, and they'll never bother me again because I know what they're looking for. I've dealt and done this for decades. Again, it's a $20 limit. Anything over 20 or 20 pounds for England, anything over 20 pounds, they pay an import fee on. They're responsible for it. It's in my payment descriptions and all that kind of stuff too. My payment policy states that. So anyway, I ship those countries direct. Anything else goes through the global shipping program. No exceptions. The countries again: Canada, France, England, Germany, Australia, and Japan. Straight ship from me straight to them. I do the little. I have to sign the slips and the whole works. Everything else is through the global shipping program. Anything over 4 pounds is through the global shipping program because first class international only goes up to 4 pounds. So again, anything over 4 pounds goes global shipping program no matter what country it's going to. In very rare occasions, I've sent some heavier items once or twice to Japan and to England, but I don't like to do that very much. It's usually people that have bought many items from me that I'll do that to. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question on that as well. Hopefully that answers it. Yesterday was a very hectic, lot of stuff going on yesterday. I wasn't my top game, so I do apologize to Chris a little bit there too. Yesterday we had power out twice for around 2 hours. I had to stop and start business, no lighting. It was just an issue, and we had to keep switching over from cell phone Wi-Fi and limits, and taking longer to do photos and all that kind of stuff. I had many people here working, so I lost some money on that. We had some issues going online. I was literally off my game yesterday, so a lot of stuff going on. Busy here. Pack up took a while. I've been listing a ton of stuff. If you haven't listed, or had people working for you, to get 3 and 4 people listing at the very same time, you got to have a bunch of stuff lined up. So it's not just a simpleton process. This has gotten to be much bigger growing pains, I guess you could say. Something every business has. And as we get more and more stuff going through, and we've streamlined so many processes now, we've actually got a bunch of stuff moving. I've got like a assembly line, so to speak, of processes. And that's literally how we've been listing everything, and it's actually been increasing. So me saying my sales are increasing is because of all this effort I'm putting into it. And we're starting to see returns from other sites as well, from cross-listing and things like that. So, it's growing pains right now. We've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of headaches here and there, little fires we're putting out, but things are going in the right direction. Just what I wanted to. It's turned into a bigger and bigger thing as we progress. So again, what I'm looking at. Jumping Frog is where I'm heading. Again, a lot of people might think 22 feedbacks, nothing compared to eBay. Because on eBay, I can get, 400 or 500 feedback in a month. 22 feedback's horrendously good on Amazon. So, just keep that in mind when you're looking at things like that and you're doing your own research on this. You know where I'm going. You know what I want. So you'll see me progress to that point. And maybe I'll share some more information here and there. I give out numbers here and there occasionally. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some thoughts on this. Questions, again, shoot them out there. If I missed something, or I didn't quite get to the question that you were asking, maybe there was some misconception in what you were asking, just shoot them back down there. Again, I thank everybody else. If you need anything, just shoot it out to me as always. And again, I appreciate all the support.